Hi, this is Sarah Lingra, and welcome to another teaching video with piano key finders. This one is called 8 Rhythms. It's a two-part video series. The first part, this video, is going to be explaining the methodology and why, and the second video is simply going to give you examples of how this is working. The worksheet that I'm using for this can be downloaded on the pianokeyfinders.com/blog under 8 Rhythms, and it is a free download. And the card that I'm using, the card that I'll be showing, is this one. It's a boogie card because of the way that the notes sound, and it's going to be a set that is produced March 2024. I've been using piano key finder cards since August of 2023, and I will say that it has completely transformed my teaching, and it has given me a big shot of creativity and inspiration, because I'm finding that my students are picking up these concepts a lot quicker than what I anticipated. So some background here. When I started teaching a long time ago, I found that teaching the names of the keys on the piano is fairly straightforward. Pitch on the piano is fixed, not like guitar where you can play the same pitch on all 6 strings if you're using the frets. Here, that's always going to be middle C. So then when I started doing the piano key finder cards, the card here that I slide on the back of the keys makes pitch even easier. It's no longer ambiguous. And what I found is, if I have students playing more things and transposing, we use this for as long as they need it, and then that one goes by the wayside. So this idea of rhythm and pulse. Rhythm and pulse are not the same thing. Pulse is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and rhythm dances on top of it. You can't dance on top of something that's not steady, so this idea of creating a steady pulse is really important. Also, when you have beginning students or novices, or if you haven't been playing very long, the music that you're playing is really short, and it's not long enough to develop a really strong sense of muscle memory, and it gets a little boring, and there are things that in those initial lessons that you can't actually practice too much because you're not given enough, because 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever your lesson time is, isn't enough to teach all of those concepts that can be used to develop this idea of muscle memory and repetitiveness in something that's not tied to a piece. Because I know from experience, and I've been teaching for over 30 years, that if you're teaching 8 to 12 to 16 bar pieces in those beginning lessons, often it doesn't take a student very long to be able to play that. And so then they, play it once or twice and they think that's enough. So the next thing was, when I was taking lessons with Elliot Deutsch, Pandemonium Big Band, and he has a YouTube channel where he teaches big band arranging. And one of our conversations, he was telling me that when he had a professor that told him that there were 8 different rhythms with quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes, and dotted quarter notes. And if you combine those in various things to make up 2 beats, there were only 8 different permutations of those. The problem with using those things with early students, early in the lesson planning, is, first of all, they're not teaching pulse, those are teaching rhythm, because those are subdivided beats, 1 and 2 and, rather than 1 2 1 2. And that is an abstract concept that is very difficult for a younger or inexperienced pianist to understand. But if you multiply all of those rhythms by 2, you get a whole note, 4 counts. Dotted half note 3, half note 2, and a quarter note 1. And there are 8 rhythms that can be associated with the whole beat notes, whole notes, dotted half, quarter, and half. So I thought, well, if I start having students play patterns based on those rhythms from the very beginning, and I teach them how to transpose, which becomes very easy because we have our little cards here, which they don't need for very long, by the way. It depends on the student, of course, but the cards are only there so that they can get confidence, and it removes a barrier from playing in the beginning. And you don't need them if you're going to do this anyway, but it's helpful if you do. then they see these things, they feel the beat, they understand pulse, and then when they get a little more experienced, depending on the age of the student, then you can always reintroduce those rhythmic concepts when you scale them down to be eighth notes, quarter notes and half notes, or 16th notes, eighth notes, and quarter notes. So the idea behind what I'm doing is that I want my students from the very beginning. So this is something that I'm doing within the first 4 weeks of lessons, and I'm developing it over the first 2 to 3 months. It doesn't happen overnight, but you can see it happening. It's actually, it's like watching a chrysalis. You can see the butterfly forming inside the cocoon. So I am incorporating speaking. So when they're learning this, they're learning how to count out loud with 1, 2, 3, 4. The right foot is tapping, and this is a left hand exercise. So if you think about how much brain power is involved in doing this, it's both hemispheres, because left hand, right foot. It is audio cortex, it's the oral, you're speaking and learning how to count, it's developing the sense of pulse, it's muscle memory, it's repetition, and it's not tied to music per se, so there's no starting and end point, and you can't say, well, it was 8 bars, I'm finished. This idea is to do it for sets of time. You can tie it in with a metronome, and there are lots of ways of what I call loading the exercise or taking it to the next level. So you can do it with the metronome, you can speed up the metronome, you can use this as a foundation and go to different patterns. And I'm really excited about this because I've been able to get students to be playing for a huge chunk of the lesson time in the beginning with stuff that they feel confident that they can take home, and I can already see that really solid foundation going. And the example that I use and the importance of this is that this rhythmic stuff with the pulse is like you're holding a board over your head, and you have to keep this board really steady because on top of the board you have a tap dancer. And if you can't keep this board really steady here, and you're going, whoa, 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 then that tap dancer who's trying to do something on top really struggles. And so here we're doing solid rhythm and pulse, and then your right hand ends up being the tap dancer that's moving melodic rhythms and melodies over the top of this really steady bass that you're developing. And what I'm seeing is it takes maybe 2 or 3 months to really start getting the idea of this, and then sky's the limit. Anyway, that's the explanation of why I'm doing this. This is video 1 of 2. The next video is all about what will you be doing. So here, thank you. This is Sarah Linger with Piano Key Finders, and we'll see you in the next video.